As South Africa prepares to host the very same global leaders for the summit this weekend, concerns over security are now beginning to grow a little bit more. Yesterday, International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola raised alarm over the recent unannounced arrival of Palestinian passengers, suggesting the incident may have been part of a coordinated operation. Lamola says the government remains cautious, adding they do not want any further flights entering the country under suspicious circumstances. Let's speak to the ISS's Willem Els about this then. Willem, thank you so much for the time. Good morning to you. How significant a role is South Africa having to relook at itself, or how significant a time is South Africa now having to relook at itself on the basis of security, on the basis of concern, especially when we're set to host this international conference?
Good morning to you. Yes, of course, South Africa has to look at itself. The flight, and apparently there were more than one flight that arrived in South Africa. That raised a serious sort of red flag when it comes to the security. You know, South Africa, these type of events and hosting of these events is nothing new to South Africa. We've got a very good institutional memory of safeguarding these. If we just think back about for instance, the funeral of Madiba, when we had more than 100 head of states that visited South Africa. So we've got all the plans together. We've got all the operational procedures are in place. If we learn from that, it should not be a problem. But what is really concerning is that it seems there's not a lot of transparency and also a lot of control what happened with this flight that arrived in South Africa.
That lack of transparency, does that create a little bit of worry that maybe there are internal intelligence weaknesses? I mean, the minister calling it shady work happening here.
Yeah, of course. You know, we're in process of revising our Intelligence Amendment Act. It's been on the books for some time. We haven't been able to finalize that, and that is a challenge for us. You know, our intelligence fraternity is under strain. The state capture, of course, left a big mark. They are busy rebuilding, and it seems that they were lacking in this instant.
What about the moral imperative that South Africa faces now at a time like this? I mean, there's the framing of these arrivals as part of an agenda to cleanse Palestine. I mean, that's a striking agenda to have been putting forward. How does South Africa navigate its own moral imperative of humanitarian protection while also safeguarding our own sovereignty and public trust?
Now, of course, it's always a balancing act that government has to do. We know that South Africa, even though they claim that we are impartial and that we do not take sides, we know that the history of South Africa actually taking Israel to the international court and everything that happened after that actually placed South Africa squarely on the side that is trying to take the moral high ground from their perspective. So that had some fallouts, and also that placed the spotlight on South Africa, that actually sort of placed this arrival of these refugees, if we call them that, in South Africa, you know, and the way it happened. You know, a lot of question mark, not a lot of transparency, and it seems that there's a lot of fumbling behind the scenes.
The words here from the minister, we do not want any further flights. I mean, how does that affect our credibility, particularly in diplomacy, when we've been the key nation that has actually been crying out and been a vocal critic of Israel's policy in Gaza?
Yeah, I think you know, I think the government dropped the ball in this instance. Whenever you have a flight of this nature, departing from one country, normally you have to have the authority and also the necessary clearance from the end destination when these people are going to land and disembark. And according to reports, it seems that a third country has given that clarity. We do not know what that country is. It has not been disclosed by the authorities, and that also contributed to the confusion around that. But it seems that South Africa has never been given that authority for them to come to South Africa, and that in itself is already a very big red flag.
So do you think that would trigger a recalibration of our international policy?
I think we have to go and revisit it. You know, South Africa has got some challenges in terms of governance, and this is just one of them. So it's time that South Africa, we are rebuilding, as I mentioned, and maybe this is one of the areas, because your air safety, but also our national security is at stake here.
Yeah, I mean, the question mark also then becomes, You know how many times people could actually test or want to speak about our ideological stances and begin to test those a lot and use it as a test case. I mean, is this a risk that South Africa becomes a sort of a proxy battleground for what's happening out of the Middle East?
There's always that real risk because, that what happens normally, and it happened in the past with the Cold War as well, where these proxy wars were fought not on the territories of these main role players. And South Africa was also a part of that in Southern Africa in the past. So that is a real risk that we run, and it should be managed and navigated very, very cautiously by government. Otherwise, we run the risk that that might happen.
What do you think should be the first priority now? Because it's the question of intelligence, it's the question of how did we not know, it's also a question of diplomacy, foreign diplomacy that is, and how we stand in the rest of the world, whether it be with Palestinians, whether it be with Israel, the United States, etc. Plus we have G20, we have all these facets, and South Africa's putting their finger in all of these pies. What should be our biggest priority when it comes to something like this?
Well, I think it starts with leadership, and once you have your leadership, it starts to looking at those policies, but also it comes up, it focuses on, as I mentioned earlier, on transparency. Our government need to be transparent. The public are not stupid. They see all these things and they need answers from government, because government, at the end of the day, are the custodian of the safety and security of the public of South Africa.
Yeah, that's going to be first port of call. Willem Els, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining us.